My name is Nishat Noor and welcome to Millennium Headlines. This week's top headlines are: Trump lawyers sent special counsel letter arguing president can't obstruct Russia probe. President Donald Trump's lawyers argued in a confidential January letter to special counsel Robert Mueller that the president cannot illegally obstruct the Russia probe because he, as the top law enforcement officer, has authority over all the federal investigations, the New York Times reported on Saturday. The 20-page letter from Trump attorney J.S. and then Trump lawyer John Dowd, which CNN reported on last week and the Times had obtained, said that Trump could not possibly have committed obstruction in the Russia investigation because the Constitution empowers him to terminate the inquiry or even exercise his power to pardon if he so desired. Trump's action here, by virtue of his position as the chief law enforcement officer, could neither constitutionally nor legally constitute obstruction because that would amount to him obstructing himself, Dowd and S. wrote. The two argued that no president has ever faced charges of obstruction merely for exercising his constitutional authority, and that a president can order the termination of a Justice Department or FBI investigation at any time for any reason. Trump's lawyers disagreed about whether to do the interview, and the team ended up formally responding on January 29th with the letter, which included materials from documents the special counsel already had in its possession and contained constitutional objections to inquiring the president's testimony, CNN reported, citing sources briefed on discussions. A spokesman for Mueller declined in multiple letters sent to the special counsel. Trump's legal team has laid out its response to issues it thought the special counsel was examining in 2017 and 2018. Dowd felt so strongly that Comey lacked credibility as a witness that he also sent a letter to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein suggesting that he needed to take a look at Comey's credibility before proceeding with an investigation of the president. The letter not only mentioned Comey's conduction during the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server, but also his behavior with the president. Dowd said he received a perfunctory response. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders referred CNN to Trump's outside counsel when asked for comment on his tweet speculating on whether the Justice Department or special counsel is the source behind the leaked correspondence between the legal team and Mueller. Chicago officials laud 15th consecutive month of declining gun violence. It seemed like a typical month in the nation's third largest city. A 15-year-old boy returning home from an elite Chicago prep school suffered a grazed wound in the head early last month when a stray bullet pierced the window of the city bus, police said. An agent with the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms was shot in the face while working on a newly created task force combating gun trafficking. The mother of 19-year-old college student made an emotional appeal for the citywide ceasefire on Mother's Day weekend after her daughter was shot at a party. The occasional spasms of violence, though, are not keeping Chicago officials from lauding the 15th consecutive month of declining gun violence in a city frequently targeted by President Donald Trump as a symbol of rampant crime. This is a Trump-free zone, Mayor Rahm Emanuel told CNN this week. We have facts. What matters is what happens on the street. The city has had 52 fewer murders and 229 fewer shootings through the end of May, a 21% drop in the both categories compared to the last 5 months of 2017, according to the Chicago Police Department. May alone saw a 21% decline in murders compared to last year, from 58 to 46, along with a 5% drop in shooting incidents, police said. So far this year, Chicago has had 500 fewer shootings victims than the same period in 2016, police said. The truth of the matter is, if you feel comfortable, you're going to be outside, Emmanuel said. If you're not comfortable, you're going to pull the kids in off the porch inside. It's not a statistic. It's a feeling towards that. Push divide voters, GOP moderates rebel on immigration. Cipriano Garza says Representative Carlos Corbello is a decent man, a family man. He lauds the South Florida Republican of defiantly pushing his party to protect young dreamer immigrants from deportation. Founder of a nonprofit that helps farm workers, Garza happily hosted Corbello at a reception honoring high school graduates last week at the massive Homestead Miami Speedway. But his praise came with a warning about the November's elections. He better do what's right for the community, said Garza, 70, himself a former migrant laborer. If not, he can lose. Across the country, from California's lush of Central Valley to suburban Denver to Corbello's district of strip malls, farms, and other laid-back Florida Keys, moderate Republicans like Corbello are under heady pressure to buck their party's hardline stance on immigration. Corbello, 38, is seeking a third term from a district that stretches from upscale Miami suburbs to the Everglades and down to eccentric Key West. 70% of his constituents are Hispanic and nearly half are foreign-born. Those are among the highest percentages in the nation, giving many of them a first-hand stake in Congress' immigration fight. Is another problem. Another supporter of the rare rebellion by the usual compliant moderates is Representative Mike Coffin, a former Marine who learned Spanish when his district was redrawn and include Denver's diverse eastern suburbs. In an interview, Kaufman expressed frustration over waiting nearly 18 months for the House Speaker Paul Ryan to deliver an assurance that Congress would address the issue. He was always telling me, it will happen, it will happen. I never saw it happen, Kaufman said. One cannot argue that those of us who signed into the discharge petition didn't give the leadership time. The centrists favor legislation that would protect from deportation hundreds of thousands of immigrants brought to the United States illegally as children. They back a path of citizenship for these immigrants who have lived in the limbo since President Donald Trump ended the Obama-era Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program called DACA. Federal courts have blocked its termination for now. At the Speedway, a local economic anchor since Hurricane Andrew shattered the city in 1992, Corbello didn't mention his battle in Washington to the graduates. Our country and our community need you, he told the audience, some of whom Garza said were DACA recipients. Corbello's district backed Democrat Hillary Clinton by a whooping 16% points in 2016 presidential race over Trump, who has fanned immigrants' resentment by repeatedly linking them to crime and job losses. That left Corbello facing a competitive re-election, though he's raised far more campaign cash than his likely Democratic challenger, Debbie Powell. On the 23rd, Republican petition signees, 9 representative districts whose Hispanic populations exceed the 18% national average. Clinton carried 12 of their districts in 2016, and several are from moderate-leaning suburbs of the cities like Philadelphia and Minneapolis, and agricultural areas in California and upstate New York that rely on migrant workers. The centrist petition echoes the hardball tactics often employed by the hard-right House Freedom Caucus. Its roughly 30 members often band together with the demands top Republicans ignore at peril of losing votes in the narrowly divided House. GOP leaders and Freedom Caucus members fear that under the votes the petition would force liberal-leaning legislations backed by most Democrats and a few Republicans, would prevail. That would infuriate conservative voters who will be needed by the polls to fend off the Democratic wave threatening GOP House control. Among those envisioning that scenario are Nicholas Muick, GOP chairman of Florida's Monroe County, which encompasses the Keys and is the reddest portion of Carbeo's district. Others reject that argument, saying moderates' worries would be handed because that they must be reelected for Republicans to retain their majority. Democrats or local immigrants activists say they wish Carbeo's effort well but question his motivation. The sentiment isn't universally shared. Over breakfast at a nearby Cracker Barrel restaurant, retiree and Trump backer Randy Nicholas, 73, and he won't support Carbeo. If they're illegal, they need to leave, and I hate to say that, but even for DACA kids. Democratic challenger said in an interview that she was glad he had finally found some strength to take a fellow Republican. The former state Senate candidate and immigrant from Ecuador and Carbeo's challenge to GOP leader will obviously bring some positive attention. She said she hopes Carbeo and his supporters aren't doing it for political reasons. Pope digs deeper into roots of Chile's sex abuse scandal. Pope Francis dug deeper into the roots of Chile's sex abuse scandal by meeting Saturday with a group of priests who were trained in a cut-like Catholic community and suffered psychological and sexual abuse there. Francis celebrated Mass with priests trained by the Reverend Fernando Caradima, a powerful preacher in Chile who was sentenced by the Vatican in 2011 in a lifetime of penance and prayer for having sexually and spiritually abused young parishioners through an abuse of power. The Vatican said the Mass and subsequent weekend meetings would help Francis better understand life instead of Cardima's El Bosque community, which catered to the rich and powerful of Santiago society during and after the Pinochet dictatorship. A Vatican statement said Francis hopes to help heal the divisions that the El Bosque scandal has created in Chile's church and help rebuild the healthy relationships between priests and the flock once they became conscious of their own wounds. El Bosque generated some 30 priests and 4 bishops before Caradima was removed from ministry and priestly society affiliated with El Bosque was closed. The recent eruption of the scandal has focused on one of the 4 bishops, John Barrows, after Francis strongly defended him only to then admit he had made grave errors in judgment. Francis' meetings this weekend with priests trained by Caradima as well as other members of El Bosque suggest he's trying to better understand the dynamics of the cult-like religious community where the abuse of power and spiritual abuse left lasting damage on victims even if they were not sexually molested. The Pope, he said, was admirably emphatic and suffered with my pain. De la Fuente said he left hopeful and the Chilean church could be reformed because I see he has complete and profound understanding of the problem and has truly clear ideas for going forward. The El Bosque scandal is similar to others that recently rolled the Latin American church, including the Mexico-based Legion of Christ and the Peru-based Sodaltium. All 3 involved a close, secret religious community where a cult of personality grew around a charismatic leader whose demand of obedience and silence enabled him to sexually and psychologically abuse his followers. In a letter the week to Chile's Catholic community, Francis became the first pope to publicly refer to a culture of abuse and cover-up in the Catholic Church, suggesting that he is becoming around to view of victims and their advocates that the clerical culture itself is a big part of the problem. Sherlock star Cumberbatch praised for tackling muggers. The food delivery from Deliveroo thanked Benedict Cumberbatch on Saturday after a newspaper reported that the Sherlock star had fought off muggers who were attacking one of his cyclists. Uber driver Manuel Diaz told the Sun newspaper that he was driving Cumberbatch and his wife Sophie Hunter along London's Marylebone High Street when they saw a cyclist being hit with a bottle. He said Cumberbatch jumped out of the car and grabbed one of the attackers. I had hold on one lad and Benedict another. Diaz was quoted as saying he seemed to know exactly what he was doing. He was very brave. Here was Sherlock Holmes fighting off 4 attackers just around the corner from Baker Street, he added. The fictional detective's home address in London is around the corner from the scene of the attack. Cumberbatch's spokeswoman declined to comment. The newspaper didn't say when the incident occurred. Police said a delivery cyclist was assaulted in the street in November. On Saturday, Deliveroo praised Cumberbatch for his heroic actions. On behalf of everyone and Deliveroo, thank you so much, it said. Facebook kills trending topics, tests breaking news label. Facebook is shutting down its ill-fated trending news section after 4 years, a company executive said to the Associated Press. The company claims the tool is outdated and wasn't popular, but the trending section also proved problematic in ways that would presage Facebook's later problem with fake news, political balance, and the limitations of artificial intelligence in managing the messy human world. When Facebook launched trending in 2014 as a list of headlines to the side of the main newsfeed, it was a straightforward move to steal users from Twitter by giving them a quick look at the most popular news of the moment. It fit nicely into CEO Mark Zuckerberg's pledge just a year earlier to make Facebook its users' personal newspaper. But that was then. Fake news wasn't yet a popular term, and no foreign country had been accused of trying to influence the U.S. elections through social media, as Russia later would be. Trending news that year included the death of Robin Williams, Ebola, and the World Cup. Facebook is now testing new features, including a breaking news label that publishers can add to stories to distinguish them from other chatter. Facebook also wants to make local news more prominent. But instead of having Facebook's moderate, human or otherwise, make editorial decisions, there's been a subtle shift to let news organizations do so. In late 2016, Facebook fired the human editors who worked on the trending topics and replaced them with software that was supposed to be free of political bias. Instead, the software algorithm began to pick up posts that were getting in the most attention, even if the information in them were bogus. In early 2017, Facebook made another attempt to fix the trending section, this time by including only topics covered by several news publishers. The thinking was that coverage by just the outlet could be a sign that the news was fake. The troubles underscored the difficulty of relying on computers, even artificial intelligence, to make sense of messy human worlds without committing obvious, sometimes embarrassing, and occasionally disastrous errors. Ultimately, Facebook appears to conclude that trying to fix the headaches around trending wasn't worth the meager benefit the company, users, and news publishers saw in it. The breaking news label that Facebook is testing with 80 news publishers around the world will let outlets such as the Washington Post and a red label to indicate that a story is breaking news, highlighting it for users who want accurate information as things are happening. The company is also funding news videos created exclusively for Facebook by outside publishers it would not yet name. It plans to launch the feature in the next few months. Facebook says the trending section wasn't a popular feature to begin with. It was available only in 5 countries and accounted for less than 1.5% of clicks of the websites of news publishers, according to the company. While Facebook got outsized attention for the problems the trending section had, perhaps because it seemed popular with journalists and editors, neither its existence nor its removal makes much of a difference when it comes with Facebook's broader problem with news. Hardman and ending the trending section feels like letting a child go. But she said Facebook's focus now is prioritizing trustworthy, informative news that people find useful. Ikram killing audio exposes government's evil plan. BNP Secretary General Mirza Fakhrul Islam Alamgir on Saturday said the audio clips regarding the killing of Teknaf Municipality Councillor Ikramul Haq has exposed to the government's evil intention behind the ongoing anti-narcotic drive. We've been raising the question about the anti-narcotic drive from the very beginning. It's being conducted with an evil motive, he said, reports UNB. Speaking to an iftar party, the BNP leader for this said, "We feared the drive might be used for political purpose, and it's not proved right with the audio clips. These have also revealed the government's evil intentions to mislead people." Rangpur Medical College ex-student welfare counselor arranged the program at a convention center in the capitals of Dhanmondi area. Amid the controversy over Ikram killing, his family distributed 4 audio clips containing recorded conversations between Ikram and his daughter and his wife before he was shot dead by law enforcers. Fakhrul said it was unimaginable that the government is killing people like birds in an independent country by imposing its repressive misrule. The Bangladesh National Party leader called upon people to take the streets, putting up a strong resistance against the government and ensure its fall. Fakhrul said the government was obliterated democracy and snatched away people's rights in a planned way, making public life miserable. He urged the people of all walks of life to get united to remove the current monstrous government from power through a strong movement. Thank you for watching Millennium Headlines. This has been Nishat Noor, and see you next week.